Well, good afternoon again. I'm glad that you who are joining me are watching my videos. Last week we talked about anti-Semitism, and today it's a glorious day outside. Love being out in the open, but I want to talk to you about something very important. I want to talk to you about the increase in the persecution of Christians. World Watch List in 2018 said 1 in 12 Christians live in an area where there is a high level of persecution. Now I want to go back for a minute to Matthew chapter 24 verse 9. It said, Jesus said, "They will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake." You know, over 200 million Christians live in an area where the Christian faith is either illegal, forbidden, or it's punished. Some of the worst countries: North Korea, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Pakistan, Iran, and India. The deadliest nation for Christians, based on a 2018 survey, was Nigeria. In the first half of 2018, over 6,000 Christians were murdered for their faith. Additionally, there was a 3-year study done by International Catholic Charity, and they reported that 75% of the people that were persecuted for their faith were Christians, and not only were 75% of the people persecuted for their faith be Christians, but they faced the worst types of persecutions. Back as far as 2016, a follower of Christ was murdered for their belief every 6 minutes. Can you imagine that? In the time that I am doing this video, 2 to 3 Christians are being murdered because of their belief in Christ. According to the Religious Freedom Report, religious freedom is declining in out of every 5 nations on the globe. Now, that's a little bit about the global situation, but what about here in the United States? You know, anti-Christian liberals continue to bring lawsuits against believers. I've got an example for you. Jack Phillips, a Colorado baker, won his case before the Supreme Court for not baking a cake for gay weddings. Not long after that decision by the Supreme Court, Jack was sued again because he wouldn't make a cake celebrating transgenderism. Now, the mainstream media wants you to think that he's discriminating against certain groups. What they didn't tell you was that he also will not make a cake that celebrates the devil, that celebrates marijuana use, witchcraft, or any cake with sexually explicit imagery on it. The media claims that he is singling out people, but Jack won't make a cake for anything that the Bible has dubbed as sinful. You know, it seems like in this world we're living in and in our country now, freedom of speech applies to everybody except Christians. If we publicly express our faith, we're called bigots. We're told to shut up. If you want to express a biblically hostile view, an anti-Semitic view, an anti-Christian view, or anti-American views, the media celebrates that as freedom of speech. Oh, they're just saying, you know, what it allows. But if you express your Christian faith, you are a bigot. I want to talk a little bit now about religious liberty laws that some states have tried to pass. And for a little background, religious liberty laws protect Christians and Jews from having to violate their faith. Listen to this list of companies: Apple, AMC, CBS, Coca-Cola, Disney, Facebook, Marvel, NBC, the NCAA, Netflix, NFL, PayPal, Time Warner, 21st Century Fox, Twitter, and Viacom. What do all these companies have in common? And this is not a complete list, but they have all launched boycotts against those states that have tried to pass religious liberty laws. And yet they claim to be fighting discrimination. Yet they are the ones that are discriminating against Christians. Anti-Christian persecution is growing, not just globally, but here in the United States. One of the most interesting things I found, George Yancey is a sociologist and professor of sociology at Baylor University. He sent out an open-ended questionnaire to a group of progressive activists about what they thought of Christians. Here are some of the answers. Kill them all, let God sort them out. A torturous death would be too good for them. I'd be a bit giddy, certainly grateful, if everyone who saw himself or herself in that category were snatched permanently from our societal peripheries, whether by Holocaust, rapture, or a plague. The last example, I'm only too well aware of their horrific attitudes and beliefs, and those are enough to make me see them as subhuman. That is what people believe about Christians. It's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. You know, some of the faithful have had to pay a big price here in the United States for what they believe. There was a teacher in New Jersey that was suspended because she gave a student a Bible. I'm sure most of you have heard about the football coach in Washington. He was placed on leave because he said a prayer on the field before the game. A Marine was court-martialed for pasting a Bible verse above his desk. And there's other examples just like this that we could go through. Some Christian institutions are facing the same thing. Schools like Gordon College in Massachusetts and King's College in New York have had their accreditation questioned. Some people argue that they shouldn't be accredited at all and that should be pulled. It's just getting ridiculous. You know, as Christians here in the United States, we haven't been getting beheaded. We haven't been thrown to the lions yet, and we haven't been thrown in prison. In the United States, there are more than 300,000 churches, and it's still legal to be a Christian here, to proclaim Christ or to convert to Christianity. But having said this, I don't want to minimize the extent of what we're facing today. Fines, the lawsuits, jobs lost, public disdain. We're thought of as backwards and bigoted. You know, you can't be out nice these people, and you can't out justice your way into cultural acceptance. Not if you hold traditional Christian views. And it doesn't help that we keep quiet about it, that we don't say anything. We are the ones letting these people take this over. But if I go back to the verse 9, Matthew 24, Jesus said all this would happen in the end days, in the latter times, that it would get worse, that we would continue to suffer this persecution, and it would get much worse. We're getting closer, people, closer to the day when Christ will come and we'll leave this world. We need to be ready. But in addition to being ready, we need to spread the good news. We know we'll be taken out, but we also know that God said that He doesn't want to see anyone left behind. That's our responsibility to tell people, to show them what's going to happen in the last days, and to convince them that they need Christ. Hope you'll join me. We're praying for revival in this country, and it can start with each one of us. I love you. Hope you have a good week. I'll see you next week. Bye now.